Hi, I'm Dr. Neil Cox from the University of Reading, and this is going to be the first of 6 really short videos about the uncanny. And the uncanny is a word you might have heard before, read before, through maybe the study of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But it's kind of a central idea within the study of the Gothic, and that's kind of why I'm talking to you about it today. The uncanny is a weird, unsettling feeling, and in contemporary literary studies of the Gothic, I guess you can trace it back to Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalyst, who wrote a really short essay in 1919 called The Uncanny. And what he did in that, he looked at lots of existing literature, stories, and he looked at dictionary definitions and philosophy, all of which attempted to account for the uncanny, this weird, strange feeling. And the first thing to say about that, I guess, is that, this isn't something that Freud invents. Freud's whole project in that short essay, The Uncanny, is to look back at what other people had said already and written already about this phenomenon. And the other thing to say about it is that Freud's essay is about the fact that he can't actually pin down what the uncanny is. It's a feeling that is incredibly difficult to define in any kind of sort of final way. And actually it's that kind of radical uncertainty about the uncanny that I think is the reason that it kind of fascinates people and carries on fascinating people. So my kind of task in this first little talk about the uncanny is quite a difficult one, because I'm going to try to explain something that those that have studied it realise is kind of inexplicable. But I guess at a starting point we can say that the uncanny is something that is strange and familiar at the same time. It's strange, but it's familiar. Look, okay, imagine this. I'm talking to you now, and I'm kind of focused on what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing. I've done this talk before, and I kind of enjoy doing it, and I'm looking straight at you, and I'm talking about the uncanny. The thing is, over there you can't see it, there's a window, right? And just when I looked out just now, I could see, looking over sort of fields, and there's a park there as well, and I see way off in the distance, I could see a little figure, a little person over there, very dark. Couldn't really make out who it was at all, but I know what are people around here, and just by the shape of that person in the distance, I couldn't kind of place them as anyone that I know, and there was something about them that I found distracting. So I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to focus on the task in hand and talk to you about the uncanny. The problem is, though, even as I'm talking to you, I'm in a corner of my eye. I can't help looking out, and when I just turn back there, the figure is still there. It's not in the distance anymore. It's still quite far away, but I can just make out much clearer who that figure might be. Well, I know it's definitely a male. Quite tall, slightly weird looking. And there's something about it I really don't like. So I'm just going to keep focused on you and talking to you about the uncanny, which is this strange feeling of something familiar but kind of alien at the same time. And I really don't want to look out that window again, because I think the trouble is though, when you try not to look at something, it's like, you know, iron filings in a magnet, isn't it? I imagine I turn and I look at that window, and this time the figure isn't far away. There's a face pressed right up against that window, and it's looking in on me with such hatred, and that face is shaking and white with anger. And as I look at it, I see absolutely unmistakably that the face that's looking in that window is me. It's my own face. Now really, it shouldn't be that frightening. And I do find it frightening to find myself looking in through a window intently at myself. I do find it frightening, but it shouldn't be, because after all, I mean, there is, to me, nothing in the world more boring than my own face. I mean, if I found my own face frightening, it would become tedious quite quickly, wouldn't it? You know, in the morning with a shave. You know. I don't. My face is dull, and it's familiar. Why is it then that the thought of seeing my own face should be such a frightening, disconcerting thing? Well, Freud says a lot of things in his 1919 essay, The Uncanny, but one of the things I think he is suggesting is, well, look, put it this way. If I gave this lecture 50 years ago, it wouldn't be very good. Mainly because it would involve crying and gurgling, because 50 years ago I was a little baby. You know, I would be on the floor here. Ugh. Okay. And when I think about that little baby Neil, well, I can't imagine what it must have been like to be that little baby. You know, when I was a baby, I couldn't even think. I couldn't identify myself, my own desires. You know, I wasn't an I wasn't a Neil. I was nothing. You know, I guess. And when I think back on being a baby, I can't obviously remember anything about it at all. Neil as a baby Neil, is kind of unthinkable to me. It's so kind of alien and strange, that thing that I was. Yet at the same time, you know, it is me. I was that baby. That is Neil, and I am Neil. And what Freud is getting at in a part, you know, with the uncanny, is that sometimes we encounter ourselves, but what we encounter isn't the familiar part of ourselves, or the ourselves that we tell stories about or we know about. We encounter sometimes that part of ourselves that we've forgotten, or is alien and different to us. You know, not just our baby selves. We find ourselves doing something that weirdly reminds us of a time before we've become quite who we are. But also ourselves in all our various guises. Ourselves asleep. Ourselves enraged. Ourselves enamoured. And what we encounter there is something familiar, but also totally foreign. We're strangers to ourselves, Freud says. And the condition of encountering the stranger, the familiar stranger, is the condition of the uncanny.